Morning, everyone. Hopefully we've got a slide coming up in a sec where I'll just rattle through really briefly, if I may, progress with the B network, which is Greater Manchester's integrated public transport and active travel network to support this incredibly burgeoning city region. Greater Manchester's growing faster than anywhere else in the country in terms of its economy, and it needs public transport and active travel that supports that growth. But I want to start really before I get into the ins and outs of that slide, to just reflect on the purpose of all of this, because it's only really with the creation of mayoralties and a single point of public accountability, if you like, in the form of a mayor, that stuff really starts to happen. That's what happened in London. When the mayoralty was created in the year 2000, Ken Livingstone was the first mayor. Before then, nobody knew who was in charge. Suddenly, everybody knew who was in charge, and there was that impetus to get stuff sorted. So I think the story I'm about to tell is a story that could be told of any of the major city regions of this country as they start to shape their public transport and active travel systems to support their people. So that's really important. The other thing I'd say before I go down my rabbit warrens here is to remind ourselves of the purpose of it. We are not painting all the buses yellow for the sake of it. We are doing it so that we can integrate public transport and active travel to make it easier for our customers to use us. And very often when we talk about transport, particularly when we've got all the brain power and expertise as we have in this room, you very often start talking about the technicalities of stuff. But transport isn't an end in itself, is it? It's a means to an end. And I think that's a really, really important thing to remember. And all of this works in harmony with government policy for economic growth. It also works to narrow that productivity gap that we've got in this country between London and the southeast and the rest of the country. If you apply similar tests in continental Europe to compare Paris, say, with second cities around France, the productivity gap between the two is much, much narrower than it is here. So we've got to work away at that. So it's about economic growth, it's about productivity, it's about getting people access to homes, jobs, and opportunity, making the public transport and active travel network more accessible, and really providing opportunity for everybody. I've been here 3 years now. When I turned up, the cost of a single bus fare in Greater Manchester was about £4. So if you were on the minimum wage and you needed to travel in order to get a job, that's a big chunk of your money gone already. So affordability is a really important element of all of this as well. So let me talk about progress with the B network briefly. I'll start in the top right, if you like, of that slide. The tram network here, Metrolink, is the biggest tram network in the country. We are back to well above COVID levels of patronage. This idea that travel is so last year is not the case, certainly here in Greater Manchester. And the responsibility for running that has always been a partnership between the combined authority, the mayor and the 10 district leaders, and at the moment Keolis Amy, who run the service. So that has always sat on the profit and loss account of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. We have now completed the process of bringing buses back under local control as well. Again, not for the sake of it, but so that we can plan the bus network and the Metrolink network in harmony. So we can run later and earlier trams to meet the later and earlier buses that we're also able to plan, for example. I'm sure we might get into bus franchising, but I have to say, while it is, what I'm going to say is going to make this sound, the process sound really easy. It is not an easy process. It requires a colossal amount of hard work and detailed planning to get the buses back in. But what I can say is once you've done it, it is well worth the effort. We're already seeing punctuality exceeding what went before when it was under commercial arrangements. Revenue is running ahead of forecast. More people are using us, and we've been able to start introducing things like night buses in the north of Manchester for the first time. So any of you familiar with the area, the V1 and the 36 run all night, and it's really paying off in terms of the nighttime economy and supporting the nighttime economy of Greater Manchester. So we had the trams, we bought the buses together with it, in partnership, incidentally, with the people. These are franchises, so we have professional bus operators operating the bus network, and we have world-class bus operators here, and we're working in very, very close partnership and collectively in a way that simply wasn't possible under the old arrangements. Building on Sarah's point about data, for the first time we've got truckloads of data about what's happening on the bus network, which we're able to put alongside everything that we already know, and that is enabling us to improve passenger information and to plan the network more effectively. So I want to emphasise, it's not just a question of public-private. These have to be partnerships that leverage the expertise of everybody who's involved. Anyway, we've done that. On the 23rd of March this month, we will integrate the fares and ticketing engine between Metrolink and the buses. So any of you that travel on Metrolink, you know you can just tap and go. You'll be able to do the same on the buses. People will still be able to pay by cash and choose the mode of payment that they want. But if they want to use their contactless payment card as their ticket, they will be able to do so. And we will cap the fare at a daily rate, a combined tram and bus daily rate. And also we'll do that retrospectively for the weekly ticket as well. So you don't have to think in advance, will I need to buy a weekly this week? You won't have to, you just tap and you go, just like you do in London. That also goes alongside all of the infrastructure that we got for active travel. There's some pictures here of the Starling bikes. And there's a whole, and if Dame Sarah Story were here, Dame Sarah Story is the Active Travel Commissioner in Greater Manchester, and Sarah and I work really closely together to make sure that there is integration between the public transport side of things and active travel. And there is a huge agenda of and delivery program of active travel interventions right the way across Greater Manchester. Incidentally, this isn't about just getting people in and out of the centre of Manchester. It's about orbital journeys as well. One of our busiest bus routes is between Ashton, Oldham and Rochdale. It's not in and out. The busiest route we got is the 192, where you almost have to close your eyes, step out, and you're on one. They're so frequent. And we're getting to a similar position now with turn up and go services on other bus network, and other buses around it. I went on the 135 up to Bury the other day. It's turn up and go. So anyway, it's not just about in and out of central Manchester. The next phase on public transport is to bring 8 of the core commuter rail corridors into the B network by 2028. And we have a 3-stage programme to do that, working with government and working with Northern Trains. And that is really profound because we're putting the customer at the heart of this system. Customers don't really care what logo is on the side of the vehicle on which they are travelling. They want a safe, reliable, affordable, customer-focused set of services. So what we're going to do, sort of in advance of the rail reform agenda, which is currently underway, is bring those 8 lines within the B network. So we'll brand them, we'll integrate, there'll be pay-as-you-go ticketing on the rail network as well, and we'll integrate that with the daily fare cap that we've got for buses and for trams. So people travelling in from Glossop will know that they'll be able to get on a train and then have an onward journey once they get into the centre of Manchester on a bus or a tram, and we will do the hard work of guaranteeing the lowest possible fare. Again, people familiar with London, sort of how it works there, that's how it's going to work here. Again, a great collaboration, Northern, really collaborative. We're working with government on the introduction of pay-as-you-go and all of that. So by the end of 2028, this region will genuinely have, it won't just be talk anymore about having London-style public transport and active travel systems. It will be a reality. And I'm really confident that that will get more people to use us. On the rail side of things, it will reduce the net revenue call on the Treasury. We reckon that by integrating those 8 lines, we'll get about 1.3 million more people using rail services every year in this region. That will reduce the net call on subsidy for government. Alongside all of that, and as rail reform takes shape, there also needs to be a statutory role for mayors in things like service specification, fare setting, station standards, all of those sorts of things. You know, do you have staff on those stations at all time while services are operating and all the rest of it? So we'll get to all of that as the rail reform agenda passes through Parliament. But in the meantime, we're getting on with it so that if you're a passenger, if you're a customer, you will want to use us more. So the big picture there is that we are trying to shift mode share. 60% of the journeys in this region are undertaken by car as a driver or as a passenger. 40% by active travel or public transport. We want to get that to 50-50, which in short order, which implies 1 million more journeys a day being undertaken by walking, cycling, active travel and public transport. So there's a big picture here that all of this activity is aligned to delivering. Chair, I think that's all I intend to say at the moment. I hope that gives you a flavour. I hope you've tried it, actually. We're really proud of it. People are proud of their public transport system and what it's doing for the region. And again, as I mentioned before, I think similar stories could be told across all of the great city regions of the country. I hope that's been helpful. Thanks very much.
Vernon, thank you very much indeed. Now then, I'd like to invite to the stage Mike Batheram, who is Market Director for AtkinsRealis. Now, I understand I won't welcome Mike. Let's give Mike a round of applause, shall we? He's already here. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. Now, I understand I won't be needed for this section, so please get settled, help yourself to water if you like. We were meant to have Colette Carroll, who does send her apologies, but we have Mike, who I'm sure will be absolutely tremendous, so thank you for standing in at short notice. Gentlemen, please take it away.
Okay. No, thank you very much, and great to have you here, Vernon. And I know the audience today will be really interested in terms of some of your reflections. So I suppose one of the first questions I've got is, what's your, drawing on your broad experience really, working at TfL and TFGM, what do you see as the differences in challenges between working at TfL and TFGM?
Well, I mean, TfL's been at it in one form or another since 1863, with the development of the London Underground. Although the first paid-for bus services were started here in Greater Manchester, and if you like, the modern railways were invented here. Nevertheless, London is more advanced. It's had a mayor for longer. It's had that impetus, it's had that political impetus to get to a point where the transport system genuinely supports the economy of the region. So in a way, we're sort of playing a bit of catch-up. Yeah. I have to say, the levels of expertise that you see around the country in the combined authorities rivals anything. So the team at Transport for Greater Manchester are world-class. And what they are doing is going from, you know, where we currently are to 1,000 miles an hour. You know, I trotted off that stuff on the slide, but that takes a colossal amount of hard work. So I don't know. I mean, we're just playing a bit of catch up. But what I think we are now seeing is mayors, and any of you that were here for the mayoral session yesterday, you saw Tracy Brabin from West Yorks. Oliver from South Yorks and Andy Vernon from here talk very, with great knowledge about where they want to go. There's a very, very clear vision for what it is that they want to do and why. And then that makes the jobs of people like me that are meant to make it all happen far easier. So, I don't know, it's just a question of, we're starting from slightly different places, but I feel a real momentum for change.
And just related to that change, obviously one of the key changes that we're seeing is the devolution, increased powers, responsibilities. What's your reflection on the benefits that you've seen so far and the benefits going forward?
It's just massive. Making decisions about your local transport system should be made locally. Too many of the decisions, and I'm not criticising anybody about this, it's just the structure of where we've come from, have been made in Whitehall. And the Access for All scheme is a great example. It's a great scheme. You bid in to the department to get money to make your stations more accessible, but having submitted your list, you get told which ones you can do or which ones are going to be done next. Yeah. And I think those decisions really ought to be made locally, and that's what we're able to do, incidentally, now. The Greater Manchester and the West Midlands are so-called trailblazer combined authorities, where they are now getting single financial settlements from government to fund everything that they're responsible for. So health, education, transport, all those sorts of things. And you're getting it in one block. So you can actually start making decisions locally about where you place that money and where you put that money. So devolution is absolutely central, and it's great actually that we're now starting to see that in action, and I'm hopeful that the rail reform bill will help in that direction as well.
And just related to money, and you mentioned partnerships, what are your reflections around private finance and its contribution going forward?
Well, in order to run transport systems, you need revenue funding to run your services, and you need capital investment to improve your infrastructure. And on the capital side, we have what's called a City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement, which gives us money to invest in things like bus lanes, more active travel facilities. In Bury, any of you that live in Bury, we're going to completely rebuild the bus interchange at Bury. Any of you that have ever been to Stockport can see what's possible. You get off the train at Stockport now, and you come down to a world-class bus interchange that then opens up into Stockport town centre, and there's a load of residential that has been built there. It is fabulous, and we want to do a similar sort of thing, and the CRSTS money helps enable that sort of thing. We could have another couple of hours on the money necessary to do big transport infrastructure, like go underground at Piccadilly, like deliver the Liverpool-Manchester high-speed line, which is really starting to take root with government. So, and looking back at my London experience, the Elizabeth line, or Crossrail, was not all funded by the government. It was funded very heavily locally and by local businesses. And I think that type of thinking needs to be applied elsewhere in the country, because, clearly given the fiscal position of the nation, we just need to think creatively about how we pay for this stuff. But it's eminently doable if only we turn our minds to it.
Yeah, and that's really good. And just on other authorities, with the devolution bill, we're seeing more combined authorities now going to be established. What lessons do you think the other combined authorities that are going to be established can learn from TFGM and Greater Manchester? Well,
it's a two-way street. We're all doing similar things, but the local circumstances are slightly different. So if you go to West Yorkshire, for example, they have now got money and are working to introduce a light rail network in Leeds. It's the biggest region in the country that doesn't possess that type of thing. So their journey is going to be, and everyone's sort of going to do franchising, and I strongly recommend that the bigger authorities anyway do franchising. So I'm only saying this to just illustrate that people are doing the same thing, but the local conditions are slightly different in terms of taking it forward. In Liverpool City region, they already have Merseyrail, fabulous local rail on the books of the Liverpool City region, accessible, regular, staff at the stations all over the place. You know, it's fantastic. So we're all on the similar journeys, we're all on the integration journeys, and all of those journeys need to be a proper lock-up between the public sector and the private sector. It is not one or the other. It has to be a combination of both. But the control for specifying the services ought really to rest with the people that have the democratic accountability for delivering economic growth and greater productivity and social cohesion in their regions.
And with all of the attendants here, what do you see as a key role of the supply chain?
Supply chain's just got such a mass. Even in the conversation I've just had here this morning, new light bulbs have gone on in my mind about things that we could do differently. And I think the conversations that we have at events like this and in the normal course of business are absolutely central to future success.
Okay. And then you just touched upon the Liverpool-Manchester Railway and the partnership board. AtkinsRealis are involved in that partnership. What's your reflections on that partnership compared to where you've seen that previously?
Well, it's just brilliant, isn't it? You've got the Mayor of Liverpool City Region, you've got the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Hugh Merriman, the former Rail Minister, is chair of the partnership board. You've got organisations like your own, all together talking about how to get this done. And, you know, that is just fabulous. So we know how challenging the delivery of big infrastructure schemes and all that is. Treasury, you know, a bit nervous about all that, given HS2 and all the rest of it. But we can't allow that to prevent progress in other parts of the country. And so those conversations with all the partners in the same room, talking about common objectives, has to be the way in which it all gets done.
Okay. And just one last question I've got. If you could wind the clock back to when you started, what would you have done differently to what you've done?
In Greater Manchester, I'd have probably braced myself for how difficult the overnight handover is when you do bus franchising, because it's huge. Right. Just the sheer logistics of going from one to the other. I think we've learned a lot about the electrification of bus depots. Yeah. Anyone interested in that subject, I'm your man. And I don't know, what's the other one? I think also when you start taking on the buses, you have to think about all of the assets that you're taking on as well in the round, and that means different skills, different thinking about, you know, how do you maintain bus washes in sub-zero temperatures, and our yellow buses, you know, need washing. So it reveals all of these sorts of things, but we're doing a big lessons learned, and we'll publish something soon about the benefits that we've seen. As I mentioned, patronage is up, revenue is up, punctuality is up. It is a success. It is not where we want it to be. We want it to be more successful than it is currently, more punctual, and that means interventions on the highway surface, bus lanes, things like that. We'll get to all of that. But in order to get to all of that, you have to do all the sorts of things that I mentioned on the slide first.
No, that's great. No, thank you, Vernon. If we could give a round of applause to Vernon. Thank you very much.